You're listening to How to 20 Something, the best podcast that helps both men and women navigate their 20s and learn how to adult across all aspects of their lives. We're going to focus on career, relationships, finances, fitness, nutrition, and all of the common challenges and obstacles a typical 20-something will face in this post-college life. I'm your host, Jess Diamond, and I am the CEO and founder of Jess Diamond Coaching, where I help young professionals get their shit together, gain their confidence, and own their life. No one prepares you for this adulting world, so allow me to help you feel like you are no longer a chicken running around with its head cut off, and that you actually know what the hell is going on and what your next step to take is. Welcome to How to 20 Something. Welcome back to another episode of How to 20 Something with another awesome guest who is here to help you think big, dream big, and be big, and why it's not just about what you believe, although that's definitely a major part of it. I love meeting high performance coaches because they have such a high level of thinking that just inspires you to want to reach your full potential, and that aspiring for anything less is, well, dumb. When I met Corinne a few weeks ago, I knew she had to come be a guest on How to 20 Something. So I'm very glad that we were able to find a time to record and get this thing going. But like I said, and as the title suggests, today we're going to be talking all about achieving your dreams, what to do if you're very hard on yourself, and why this kind of work is more than a belief or a manifestation. So before we dive on in, I'm going to introduce Corinne to those of you listening so that you know a bit more about her. Corinne Eckert is a high performance and breathwork coach helping entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives tap into their limitless potential to achieve higher levels of success and impact. Through a blend of mindset coaching, breathwork, and strategic support, Corinne empowers her clients to overcome limiting beliefs, upgrade their identity, and bring their impossible visions to life. Committed to her own vision of global impact, Corinne understands the importance of a strong, focused mindset when chasing big goals. Her unique approach draws from her experience in coaching, theta breathwork, and business development, offering a powerful mix of personal growth and strategy to help others achieve their boldest dreams. Hi, Corinne, and welcome to How to 20 Something.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Jess. I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
Of course, I'm excited to have you on. Now, I like to start off most of my expert guest episodes with their story. So, how did you find your way into high performance and breathwork coaching?
Oh my gosh. So long story medium. I would do long story short, but we've got to have everything in there. So honestly, I started in the online space as a social media manager 5.5 years ago. And then that very quickly led into more of branding and coaching people how to build a brand on social media, which then turned into me owning a branding agency. So it was like more of me developing brands as opposed to coaching other people how to do that. And as I was building this agency, one of my friends who is a business growth coach looked at me and she was like, Corinne, I love you so much, but you are building the wrong business. She was like, you're really great at what you do, but you are building the wrong business. You are a mindset coach. You're in the personal development space. You help people get after big dreams and big goals. What the heck are you doing in branding? Like, what are you doing? And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. But really when she said that, it struck a chord and I was just like, wow, actually, like, I can't believe I didn't see that, which is also just something that I'm sure will come in conversation later of like, sometimes other people can see it when you can't. And having people like that to be able to open the door for you and open your eyes to being like, oh my gosh, wait, actually, I was going left. I need to turn a few degrees to the right. And so from that, I started getting more into mindset coaching, understanding high performance, and just really diving deep into my own healing as well, and working through that and combining that with theta breathwork, which is just an insane modality. I absolutely love being certified in it and being able to bring it to different people. And we'll talk about that later. I've kind of been able to help people continue to reach higher levels of success and like operate at their optimum levels, which like I feel like a lot of people and entrepreneurs especially, right, love to do. We didn't start a business for no reason. We started a business so that we could keep going above and beyond and make ourselves proud and create huge impact. And really being able to, over the years, kind of formulate, okay, how can I start to serve people at these levels? That's how I really stepped into high performance coaching and breathwork.
Oh, awesome. And you have a program coming up that it's happening next week. So can you talk about this, how someone listening can identify if this program is for them, and then also how they can sign up?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So in January 2025, we are hosting the second cohort of the identity shift. And let me tell you guys, like, if you are looking to make 2025 your year, and I know that you've heard this from everybody else, right? Like, everyone's like, oh my God, you're going to make this year your year. Like, there are so many ways to do that, right? But truly, I don't see anybody else talking about shifting your identity. And so let's talk about that for a second, because that's obviously what we're doing inside the identity shift. So when you are looking to get to that next level of success, making those dreams that you have a reality, looking at your visions for the year and looking to step into that, oftentimes we're like, yeah, we're going to step into that. We're going to do that. And sometimes we actually do the things, but it doesn't feel like us, right? Like we get there and it's just like, this feels really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know if I XYZ, or like maybe you start to hit higher revenue goals in your business, but then you start to lose that money really fast and you're like, I don't know why this doesn't feel right, or it's just feeling overall a bit not like things are clicking. And often it's because the way that you view yourself and what is possible for you is not in alignment or calibrated to the level that you are looking to go to. And so I see this a lot with entrepreneurs, is that like I said with the revenue thing, like you will have a goal and you'll surpass that goal, that revenue goal. But then for whatever reason, you start to manifest like people wanting refunds or a lawsuit or something like that, where it brings that money that you just earned back down to a certain threshold. And that then shows you that like your energetic threshold, your vision for what you believe is possible for yourself is at that level, not at the level that you're going towards. Other things look like, stepping into being a speaker, being a coach, being an entrepreneur, being an athlete, being that next level in your corporate job. Like you start to think about doing that and you're excited about doing that. And then you're like bogged down by all of these limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, comparisonitis, like all of these things that are telling you that you can't do this because you're not qualified and this, that, and the other thing. Who am I to do this? And all of that is based on how you see yourself and what you see as possible and the associations that you have based on your experiences and your beliefs to that thing. And so in the identity shift, we find what is going on. What is lurking beneath the surface? What are these limiting beliefs? What are the associations that you have? And when I say associations, I mean like a good example is one of my clients, she hit 250K in her business last year. And then this year she was like, okay, cool. I'm going for 300K. And she hit 250K like as of end of September. And she was like, cool, I've got like another quarter of the year. I definitely have to, I'm gonna hit my goal. And no matter what, she hired new coaches, she hired experts in her business, she put out new programs, and for whatever reason she could not hit past 250,000. And then once we got to the root of her fear, she didn't even realize that there was something here, but as we got to the root of this, we realized that she has a fear of success because she has been taught, she has the association that anywhere over $250,000 in revenue equals less freedom, equals busier schedules, equals harder clients, equals XYZ, right? All of these things that she was like subconsciously like, I don't want to deal with. So working through that stuff, being able to identify that, then release it and reprogram your thoughts so that they don't go to the negative association that you have, but go to a positive association that empowers you to actually step into these levels and then calibrate your nervous system and hold that level. That is what we do inside the identity shift. And that was just the longest non-elevator pitch I've ever given you. So thank you for listening. But that is truly what we do. Like we look at where you are, where you want to go, and then how can we shift how you see yourself and how your nervous system and your brain are calibrated to that next level. So not only do you hit it, but you also can maintain it once you're there.
Yeah, I mean, this is incredible, deep inner work. And I was going to mention that a lot of times when you're going to reach that next level that you're after, and then you find yourself holding yourself back or reaching a cap say, like for the example you gave, the 250,000 for your client was her cap, is that fear of success. And I've talked a lot about fear of success on here because it's hidden. It's one of those things of, no, I want to be successful. I'm not afraid of that. But then you don't realize those underlying things of what else comes with, like what else could potentially come with that success. And it's that less time. It's the what if I get it all and then I lose it all. It's like all of those other fears that pop up while you're trying to go after the thing you want. And I would say, oh, everyone, every single person has beliefs that limit them from what it is they're trying to pursue or what they're going after. And I actually had a coaching call yesterday with a potential client, and we were talking about that. And part of her hesitancy with coaching is she doesn't believe it's possible for her to change. And I got to invite her into a conversation of, you don't have to believe it right now. I can hold that belief for you until you're ready to step into it, because I know it's possible. But at the end of the day, if you're going to commit to this type of investment, you have to believe it is possible for you to change and for you to make this effort and for you to go in this direction that you're trying to go. So I love that you are doing this. How can people sign up if they're listening as well and they're like, I got to do this. I know I have my own limiting beliefs. I need to shift my identity, all that. And on that note, I also want you to explain what limiting beliefs are, because I feel like it's a more coachy term. And people are just walking around saying, man, I wish my beliefs were less limiting. So I'm going to let you take the floor back. What are limiting beliefs? Can you give some examples of it? And how can people sign up for the identity shift?
Yeah, so limiting beliefs, and apologies. You know, when you're like in it so much that you forget that it's not like a normal term that people use. Like that's where I'm at with limiting
Yeah.
beliefs. So I appreciate you bringing that up. So limiting beliefs are any beliefs that you have about yourself or the world around you that keep you back in some way. And the tricky thing about these is that some of them are really easy to spot and some of them are not easy at all to spot. And they can be like, they can kind of come up as things that are good in some respects, but not in all respects. So that's why they become a little bit trickier. So some of the easy ones that you can spot are like, oh, I can't do that, or who am I to do that? Like, I don't think that this, that, and the other thing is something that I am worthy of, able to do, enough for, you know, all of that. Something that's a little bit trickier to spot is like perfectionism, people pleasing. These are all things that are limiting beliefs because they are limiting your capacity to be 100% yourself. And so you being able to harness these, like understand them, pinpoint them, harness them, and then be able to release them and reprogram your mind to say, like, the way that I kind of think about it is in your brain, you have neural pathways. And so it's like when you think of one thing, it automatically, your thought goes to another thing. And so that's a neural pathway in like the least sciencey way possible. And so when you have a limiting belief, you have like the trigger of the thing, right? Like say someone gives you constructive feedback. If you have a limiting belief that's like, oh, I'm not that good, when you hear that constructive feedback, that's like the trigger, your mind goes to, oh yeah, I'm not that good. And so that's like a line that over and over and over again, you keep running across. So like think about if you were in a field and you only ran across the same line all the time, you just went back and forth and back and forth, eventually it would be like dug down. So think about it, the neural pathway like that. And so what we want to do is when we find that root of why we're running back and forth, right? We think that we're not good enough. We start to find the triggers. And so the trigger here was like someone gave us constructive criticism, feedback, and it triggered us to believe that belief again. And so when we find different triggers, we can be like, okay, instead of believing that, I want to actually believe that this is information that's making me better. So then we're basically going back to that trigger in the field, but running in an opposite direction. And we're going to keep running that way every single time. And at first it's going to be hard because you're going to trip over things. And, you know, like there might be some like flowers that you have to trot over and like all of this stuff, right? Like it's not that easy. And that's the same thing of like, when the trigger comes up again, you're going to feel triggered and you're going to want to go to the negative, but like you have to teach yourself to go to the positive. And as you keep doing that, it gets easier and easier. And soon that new neural pathway connects and that old one gets overgrown. And so you're basically redirecting your thoughts to that next thing. So I hope that is helpful enough to understand a little bit about limiting beliefs and how to redirect them. But different things like perfectionism is huge. That and making sure that we're always like correct or right or doing the right thing. People pleasing, like I said, imposter syndrome, all of these things are also rooted in limiting beliefs. And so that's why, like, when we're talking about making next year or whenever you're looking to, like, redefine yourself and rebrand and like fresh start, yay, it's really important to realize the places where you're holding yourself back. Because when you are trying to continue moving forward, yeah, you might achieve the things that you want, but you haven't gotten rid of the core beliefs that you have that might be capping your potential. And so when you're able to release that, you now have an uncapped, unlimited potential to be able to do even more than you could with all of those, while carrying all of those beliefs, all of that quote unquote like baggage. So if you are interested, feel free to DM me on Instagram right now. No, by the time that you're hearing this, the page will be up. The page is currently under construction, but it should be CorinneEckert.com/identity shift. So if you want more information, you can go there, but then you can also find me on Instagram at Corinne.Eckert. And we can chat about it if you have any questions. They're like totally open to having any calls to see if this is the right fit for you, because truly this is something that you need to dedicate yourself to. Like Jess was saying, this is deep inner work. It isn't something that it's like, oh, you're gonna invest in this and then poof, your life is great. Like, you have to do the work. Similar to like if you're going to the gym, you're not gonna pay for a coach and then never go. You're gonna show up at the gym every single day and you're gonna follow your macros and you're gonna do the things. And it's like, that's what this is. But it does yield the results. So if you're looking to get the results and you're ready to make that investment and you have some questions, let's talk about if this is right for you. So we can totally jump on a call as well.
Awesome. All right. I want to jump back to when you were talking about perfectionism and people pleasing, because I know there's a lot of that. I don't know if it's a generational thing or whatever it is, but I come across a lot of people who suffer with people pleasing. I myself, I know, can relate to perfectionism. And I think a lot of 20 somethings out there can, because we're always trying to be the best. Grew up in a very competitive school system to get to the right college, to get to the best job. Like, all of that was always competition. You had to be perfect. And I know I'm personally really tough on myself when I don't perform to the best of my ability. And I know someone listening can also be like, yeah, me too. What would you tell someone that just accomplished something, they know it could have been better, and they just keep replaying what happened over and over and over again in their head and are really hard on themselves as a result, knowing that they can't even change the past?
Oh my gosh, this is such a good thing. And first of all, I want to say you're not alone. I know that you're like, I've felt this. I'm over here like, I feel this all the time. Even though I'm a coach, this is the work. Like, we keep doing it. And then you find something else and you keep working on it. But truly, like, the biggest thing that I think was hardest for me to shift and is really hard for my clients when we go through this is validating the feeling. Because it feels like when you're validating the feeling that you're giving yourself permission, quote unquote, to be, quote unquote, worse than you thought you could be. But the thing is, right now, you're fighting yourself. And that's not going to get you anywhere. If your emotions that you're holding around this right now are like little kids, and they're like screaming, having a little tantrum, are you going to drag them with you? Or are you going to go to them and say, hey, thank you so much for being here. I understand what you're saying. Let me hear all that you have to say. Cool. Appreciate it. Do you want to come with me? And then you're like, yay. And so it's like, honestly, our minds work the same way. Our bodies work the same way. Our emotions work the same way. And so when you validate the feeling, it doesn't mean that you are accepting that happened, which is really great, but it's not like you're lowering your standards for yourself. You're just giving yourself the grace that you would give anybody else to say, hey, like, this wasn't as great as you wanted it to be, and that's okay. Like, that means you just have another chance to do this in another time. So like, number 1 is validate the feeling. Number 2, I would say, and this is like where more of my coaching comes in, and like, this is where my clients know that I love them, but like, I'm going to give tough love in like the nicest way possible, is you are now keeping yourself back. And so you're perpetuating the story by continuing to think about it, which means that you are allowing yourself to stay in victim mindset because you won't allow yourself to accept that you had a learning opportunity. You can look at it as a failure and be mad at yourself this whole time, and time's still going to go on, right? You're still going to move forward. Life is going to be as it is. Do you want to move forward feeling like you suck and all this shame and guilt and all this stuff? Or can you look at it and say, hey, this is something that I did. Yeah, I'm not the most proud of it, but similar, I always go back to like the gym analogy. It's like similar to going to the gym. That was just a rep. That was a rep for me to be able to hit my PR. I thought it was going to be my PR and it wasn't. And so, great. Now I have more information for the next time. But this doesn't mean anything about me, who I am, and what I'm capable of in the future. And so that's kind of how I would look at it, because it's like, really, if you have to fix something and it is fixable, quote unquote. So like say you had a really tough conversation, you said something that was really negative and you are regretting that. You more than likely can go back to the person and say, "Hey, I would like to reopen this conversation because I want to resolve what I had said." Or, for instance, like even in my own business, I had a program 2 years ago and I opened it and I promised a lot of things. And the way that the content dripped out wasn't what I had sold them, because because of the way that everything was playing out personally and in my business and in the way that they were interacting with things, it just wasn't what I had marketed to them. And so I said, hey, like, I honestly, at first I was like, oh my God, what the heck do I do? What is happening? And then I was like, you know what? Come back into me for a second. How do I want to actually act moving forward? And I went to them, all of the clients, and I said, hey guys, I realize that I promised you A, B, and C. I delivered on A and B and didn't deliver on C. I'm going to close this program, but offer you X for my new program to make it up to you. And both of them were like, cool, great, lovely. You know what I mean? And like, I think so many times we freak out about how it could have been better. And when you can just make slight changes and people are okay with that. But if it is something where it's like, you personally wanted to do better, like say you're running a marathon and you wanted to do a faster time and you just didn't, you cannot go back and fix that marathon time. But what you can do is validate that, hey, I really do wish this was better, but I can't do anything about it. So how can I get myself to look at this as, hey, this was information about my capabilities at that point. What did I learn? And how can I then use that information to make a better rep next time that I do it?
I love these gym analogies because you're speaking to a personal trainer, so it's music to my ears. But it makes sense. I tell people you're allowed to throw your pity party, not for too long, and then ask like, what are you going to do about it? Like, how can you move forward from this? And is it something that you need to be okay with and come to terms with? Hey, that happened. Life happens. I'm not proud of it. And then how do I make sure I don't repeat that again? So that I do put my best foot forward the next time, so that I do come out on top, so that I do improve whatever it is I was setting out on. Because you can't turn back time. Time is the only non-renewable resource out of like time, energy, and money. It's like you can get your energy back, you can recharge yourself. Money's gonna come back into your bank account. Time does not come back. It is non-refundable. So you have to know how to move forward with the life that just happened, that experience that just happened, knowing that your first time doing anything is not going to be great. I know the first time I went to even record the trailer for this podcast, it took me an hour because I could not come to terms. That was me just diving deep into my perfectionism. And then once that first episode was more of the coming to terms with, okay, it's done, and done is better than perfect. And from there, I'm going to put in the time, I'm going to do the reps, I'm going to do those exercises, and I'm going to get better as I proceed. And even still, sometimes I know I talk way too fast on these things because I get excited and then my passion pours into it and I word vomit, and it happens. And that's also kind of how I talk sometimes. And that's just how it is. It's my podcast and I get to do whatever it is I want to do with it.
Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Exactly. And I think too, like, the done is better than perfect thing is something that I wanted to bring up, because as a recovering perfectionist and people pleaser myself, it's really hard to be like done is better than perfect. But if you think about it, if something is done, right, you get off the hamster wheel. But if you're like, "Oh, I'm waiting for it to be perfect," you are staying on the hamster wheel running in circles when you could be off the hamster wheel running forward. So it's like, at what point can you find that you are proud of your work and proud of whatever you did, and okay that it isn't the best thing that you could have ever created? Because ultimately, like, so many people, it hurts my like high achiever soul to say this, but it's like, it's part of it. There are so many people getting so much further because they have come to terms with not having to be perfect in order to move forward. As you were saying, we grew up in a society where it was like, you need to be the best, you need to overperform to impress others, and then you will get what they bestow upon you. You know what I mean? And so it's ingrained in us from a very young age. And so, like, don't hold it over yourself or feel guilty about that. We are a product of our environment in that respect. And it's okay that that is how we grew up. And now it's our responsibility to decide how we want to move forward. And so you get to choose, like, now, like literally right now, as you're listening to this, you can decide that from this moment forward, things get to be a little bit different, and you get to take back a little bit more control of how you actually want to show up. And I think you kind of get more comfortable with what you feel is perfect and what you feel is sufficient. And the more that you do that, the more trust and confidence you actually build in yourself, because you start to realize, sometimes, I'm going to use myself as an example, you kind of just start to realize that you were being perfect for the approval of others to then approve of you, for them to like you, and then you gave yourself permission to like you. But it's like, when you start to allow yourself to have a conversation with yourself and be like, cool, am I proud of this? Yeah. You start to feel good about yourself outside of what other people think about you. And so then it doesn't really matter about going for perfection every single time, because you're not looking for that external validation. You have it internally.
Yeah, I think it even doubles back on dating and interviewing for new jobs. It's like, asking yourself, if it's dating, the example being, ask yourself, do you like this person? Not, does this person like me? Or I need to change myself to make sure this person likes me, or try to convince this person to like me. It's no, do you like you? Do you like the person you are when you show up? And do you like this other person? Do they add value to your life? Do they complement your life in any way? And when it comes to interviewing or careers, it's the same thing. Is, I need this company to like me. Like, yes, the company does need to like you to hire you, but you also have to decide for yourself of, do you want to, you're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. Is like, do you like this company? Do you like what they stand for? Or are you just desperate for a job right now? Back to relationships. Are you just desperate for a relationship right now? And it's really coming to terms with yourself. It's doing that inner work first, knowing who you are, what you want in your life, what's going to add to your life, and then seeking out those possibilities as a result, so that you don't come to terms with those feelings of regret, or that it could have been better, or you could have had a better job opportunity, a better relationship, like everything else. Is because you came from that heart-centered, soul-centered core place and took action and made decisions from there.
Yeah. And honestly, like, the more that you get to know yourself and the more that you get to love yourself, like, the more you find out about yourself and the more you find out about what you love and what sets your soul on fire. And I think that that's really cool, because ultimately, I think too, along with the us growing up in, always having to impress other people, we also were kind of given this idea that, like, we would get to a point where we know everything and that everything's constant and everything is good and we made it. And it's like, surprise, that never comes, because we are constantly evolving. And that is actually the coolest, most beautiful thing about growing up and about living, right? And so it's like, don't take this conversation as like a, do some inner work for a month and then you're going to know who you are and then life is going to be great. Like, you get to continue to build upon that. Like, you get to be at 100% and then learn something else and then you're at 110%. and then you learn something else and then you're at 120%. It gets cooler and it gets more fun. And so the more that you can be sure that you like yourself and be your own best friend, the more that you are going to start to like attract other things that really align with that. And I know that a lot of people talk about that stuff as like, and it feels really wooey. And if you're not in that space, you're immediate to turn that off. But it, from really a psychology and a personal standpoint, is the more that you like yourself, the more you know where your boundaries of what you do and do not like are. And then you get to choose who gets to be part of that, which is the whole like attraction thing, right? And then if something comes along and you maybe go on a date or you go to a job interview and you realize, actually, like, I don't think I really vibe with their values. I don't really vibe with their sense of humor. That's the whole, it energetically moves away from you, is like, you know your boundaries and now you know what aligns with you and what doesn't. And so if you continue to go out looking for that, it's great to get different input. But it's like, if you're not sure in yourself first, it's going to be very confusing if you're looking for other people to tell you what you should and shouldn't like and things like that.
I agree. And to those of you listening, that is your self confidence. But I want to jump into how someone can identify themselves as a high performer, because you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I kind of believe anyone could be a high performer if they choose to want to be. So, what are some common qualities or characteristics of high performers so that maybe someone listening can step into or even further validate that they are a high performer?
Yeah. And so before I say anything, I want to say that whether you are or are not a high performer, that does not mean anything good or bad about you. Not everybody needs to or wants to be a high performer, and that's cool. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. The people that I work with are high performers because I vibe with that vibe. That's who I am. Like, talking about the boundaries and things like that, like, that's how I naturally am. And so, yes, anybody can become a high achiever or a high performer, but it tends to be at first that what I've seen is like a natural inclination. Like, they have a natural inclination to want to be different, to want to go above and beyond. And this is like, maybe they've kind of always been an outlier in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they were like the nerd at school that always got straight A's, or they were like the one really good soccer player, and like people just kind of knew them because they just seemed to stand out. And so those like outlier type people that go above and beyond. In the work that I do, it's a lot of people with big visionary ideas. So things that the average person that you talk to would be like, that's a crazy idea. Like, for me, I want to be famous. And people for so many years of my life were like, you crazy. And I'm like, I am famous. Just wait. I already know it. It's fine. I am famous. And so I work with people who, want to be millionaires, who are looking to have be like on the New York Times bestselling list, things like that. Goals that are very ones that require you to step into higher levels of yourself often, to become new versions of you, think bigger, continuously grow. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see in high performers, is that they have open minds and they are continuously trying to grow and improve. They work hard, they have a willingness to learn, but something that I would say is that they, like, the misconception that a lot of people have is that because they hustle, they are bad. And I want to make this distinction. Like, for me and the way that I see it, hustling is different than hustle culture. So like, I work with people who hustle and who like to hustle and who that's like a natural inclination for. So that means that like, you are going above and beyond, you're doing the extra rep, you're putting in the extra hour, you are prioritizing in ways that your goals kind of take precedence. So this is why I'm saying, like, it's not good or bad that you do this. This just is a certain type of way that you kind of show up. Is these people tend to choose Friday nights editing their podcast, listening to books, learning, or networking, as opposed to like going out and drinking or having, date night or whatever. Like, they prioritize the goals that they're going after currently. Not all the time, but it tends to go towards that route. But with that, they do hustle in a way that is sustainable. meaning that they know their energy levels, they know how much sleep they need to have, they optimize the foods that they're eating, what they're drinking. If they go out with their friends, are they going to drink? How late are they going to stay out? Are they waking up? Are they going to the gym the next morning? Do they have routines that set them up for success as much as possible every single day? Whereas hustle culture supports kind of going above and beyond, but to the point where you are burnt out, to the point where you're sacrificing sleep and eating and working out and taking care of yourself. And so it's like the people that I work with are hustlers who continue to prioritize that stuff as well versus just only working and getting rid of all of the other things that actually make them a well-rounded human. And something that I do want to go back on really quickly is, yes, just because they're prioritizing work on a Friday night, like I said, rather than going and hang out with friends or going on a date night, does not mean that they don't have relationships with these people. It's just they are choosing between things that are really tempting and fun versus things that they feel like they are their next step towards what they're going towards. If that feels like the aligned action, like they are willing to take that action. There are some people that are like, nope, like I leave work at 5 o'clock and that's it. And that's totally fine. But it's like the people that I tend to work with go that extra mile and are like, okay, I'll put in an extra hour before I go hang out with my friends. Or like date nights, I'm not going to go to date night tonight, but can we move it to tomorrow morning at 11 type of situation. I wanted to make that clear because I didn't want it to sound like these people don't have well-rounded lives. Like the sustainability comes from having the relationships, the friends, the, networking, all of that stuff, the people aspect of it too. But they are not making that necessarily in their schedule an even thing.
They're not willing to sacrifice their bigger goals, what they're working towards at that moment, for partying and doing what everyone else their own age is doing. And I relate so highly to that. So I want to say two things. One, you touched on this, so I want to reiterate it in a little bit of a different way. If you're not a high performer, the opposite of a high performer does not mean you are a low performer, a no performer, a bad performer, like none of that. It just means you're not identifying as the high performer that we're talking about right now. Again, what Corinne had said is there's nothing wrong with that. I see it as there's people that are doers, there's people that are go-getters, and there's people that are acceptors. And there's nothing wrong with either one. It's just knowing what it is that you want in your life, what's important to you, and that's how you're choosing to live it. I work with a lot of people who want more out of their life, as you do too. And those are people who typically seek out coaching because they know that they're unhappy with their life or they're not accepting their life for what it is. They want more. They just don't know how to get to that more. The other thing I want to say is, as you are identifying these high performers and choosing not to go out on a Friday night, or when they do go out, they know what they need to get done the next day, is I had a therapist who wanted me to be on anti-anxiety medication because I had those thought processes. So when I'm out, I'm thinking, okay, I want to be home by this time because I want to get a good night's sleep so I can do XYZ tomorrow. And my therapist at the time was inferring that, no, that's anxiety. And then my coach that I have is like, no, it's because you're a 20-something who's an entrepreneur, who is well beyond her years, who does not enjoy drinking and doesn't want to be out with everyone until 2 a.m. And that's just okay, that's not something you want to do, and it's something you haven't wanted to do since you were 23 years old. So it's funny to hear you talk about it too and almost give me that validation, and hopefully someone else listening give that validation. I know there's a lot more sober, curious people that have surfaced over the last couple of years, and that's fantastic. And they're starting to realize going out is not all that it's cut out to be, and that it's actually a lot of times, or more times than not, it's taking away from your life. It's taking away from your goals and what you want, what you say you want for yourself. So I just wanted to say those two things, and I'm going to hand the mic back over to you if you want to add to any of it.
Oh my gosh, I have a handful of things to add, and I hope that they won't escape my brain. But the first thing is, and this might resonate more with the girly pops that are listening as opposed to the guys, but guys, please listen in so that hopefully you can find a parallel in your life. I don't know if you've noticed this, Jess, but in the past 5 years, in the online space specifically for coaching, it's been like, girl boss, go, 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 go. And then it was like, we're all burnt out. Feminine energy, lay back, do nothing. Like, life is great, la, la, la. And now everyone's like, but hold on. I want a mixture. Like, what is happening here? And so I think it was like recently there's been this swing of work really hard, and then people were like, that doesn't really work for me. And then people were like, relax really hard, or like feminine energy really hard. And there's a lot more into feminine energy. So anybody that's listening is like, Corinne, it's not just relaxing. Like, I know that. We're just not going to get into it. But then it's like a lot like less push, right? A lot more flow, a lot more creativity, a lot more, the freedom. And people are like, but that doesn't feel right either. And so like now finding that interim middle part is where I feel like a lot of people are starting to sit. And so when you're saying that you work with a lot of people who want more out of life, we're kind of coming out of this feminine energy, just like let it all flow. And the people like me and you who like structure and actually can have more flow when we have the structure are trying to be like, how do we get more of this? And so when you find that balance for yourself, I am actually way more still on like the girl boss masculine side. I'm like, a calendar invite me everything, otherwise it's not happening. Like, I need my hour by hour, like this works really well for me. But then it's like I get to sit here and be completely present and like super fun and flowy in the moment, and that works for me. Other people are like, if I have structure, I want to crawl into a ball and die. They're like, I cannot do that. I need to be flowy and flexible, and like everything needs to be that. And that's great. But like, that just means that I might not be the coach for you, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Like, and finding what works for you in that pendulum is what is going to be so helpful for you as you move forward in finding out how you want to approach life. And like going along with that is what you were saying, just because you don't identify as a high performer does not mean you're a low performer. I was like, that, the whole thing, 1000%. You are not a low performer if you are fully in your feminine energy or you're fully in your flow, the flexibility, anything like that. You just perform differently. I work with high performers that strive on structure. Like, this is what works, right, for us. But just because that doesn't work for you doesn't mean that you're not at the same level, or even if you don't want to be at that level of work, like Jess was saying, something that could be even significantly more important to you is like having a family, having a house, building X, Y, and Z on the side. To me, that's not important right now. Like, I am like work focused. And so that's where I'm at. You can be the same amount of focused elsewhere, and it's just labeled differently. It doesn't mean anything good or bad about either of us. We are all unique, and that's the coolest part about everything. And that's why the world works as well as it does.
Yeah, I think it really comes down to just knowing yourself. Again, bringing it right back into that identity piece and who you are and that inner work. Yes, we're going to keep saying it. I want to shift gears into the second part of your coaching practice, the breath work. What is theta breath work? Where does it come into play with the work that you do with your high performers? And why is it so important for you to include with your clients?
Oh my gosh, guys, hold on, stay with me, especially if you've never done breathwork and you're like, breathwork is so weird and wooey. Like, so I thought the same thing. I hated every breathwork that I ever did, like before I did this one. So that's why I'm like, trust me on this one. Like, hold on for a sec. So theta breathwork is a breathwork modality that combines meditation, mindset coaching, breathwork, theta healing, and hypnotherapy. Like, great, Corinne, what the heck? So I'll tell you the story first, and then I'll tell you more about it after. So I had tried multiple forms of breathwork. Every single time I was like, I don't get it. This is weird. You're playing like some strange music, and I like, my nose hurts because I'm breathing. I'm feeling all tingly. I don't know what is happening. I'm cold, and then I'm hot, and then I just leave with more questions. Like, I'm like, this is just like an uncomfortable experience overall. I don't like it. And I tried that with multiple different things, and I know nothing towards any other types of breath work. Like, when you find something that works for you, it works for you. And then when you find something that doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And like, that's what it is. And so I had basically written breath work off. I was like, this is definitely not the modality for me, anything like that. And then I had met this woman named Bia. She's fantastic. And we met at actually a small group coaching day with Lewis Howes. So if you're familiar with Lewis Howes, who is a personal development speaker, podcast host, author, we had met at a day that he was hosting, and we were talking about, trauma healing and things like that. And she was like, "Have you ever done breath work?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not really that into it." I was like, "I've had like not the best experiences, but like teach their own." And she's like, "Oh yeah, I created a breathwork modality." I was like, "Oh, sorry." I was like, "Yeah, it's just not for me." And she's like, "Cool, no worries. If you ever want to try it, let me know." And so 6 months goes by or whatever, and I'm at Summit of Greatness, which is Lewis House's event, and Bia's there as well, and she's hosting a Theta Breathwork event. And I was like, okay, it's here. I might as well try it. I know her. I want to support her because we don't live in the same city. So it's like I would have never been able to try it any other way. And so I tried it, and let me tell you, this one session, my life did a 180. So it was like a Tuesday. I had gone to my therapist, and I am on anti-anxiety medication. And at the time, this was last year, actually. It's crazy what happens in a year. At the time, my anxiety gets really bad around sickness, or it did. I don't know why. I just have such a fear of getting sick. Actually, I'm going to start to say this. Welcome to the mindset work in real time. I'm saying this in past tense now, not current tense, because like it does not actually happen anymore. And so rewriting the neural pathways. So what I basically like would carry so much hand sanitizer with me, it was nuts. And like I wouldn't touch anything. And every time that I had inside clothes and outside clothes. Like I was very on it with just, I was so afraid of carrying germs, getting sick, all these things. And I was like, okay, I'm about to fly to Summit of Greatness. I can't get sick there, and I can't get sick before then. So like I was wearing masks everywhere, and this was like 2023. So it past COVID time, but I was still very scared. And my therapist is in the outpatient part of the hospital. So literally I have to go into the place of disease to go to see my therapist. And so I'm like scared as anything, right? And I go in, I've got my mask, I've got everything, I'm not touching anything, visibly very just uncomfortable. And and this isn't just like one time, like obviously I was going to therapy every week. And the therapist was like, "I think we should start to think about like OCD medication for you." She's like, "You're starting to exhibit some signs of just OCD. And if we are able to kind of like nip it in the bud now, we would be able to start different behavior patterns for you to undo that. But right now, because it's affecting you so much, like we need to get the emotional levels under control first and then be able to do the things." And I always trust that the universe has perfect timing, right? And this is how it's like perfect timing, but like does not seem like perfect timing. I had just I was actually on a 2-week antibiotic regimen for something in my stomach. And so it was like everything in my body was killed off. I was like, I am not taking new medication yet. I was like, let me heal from this. And then we could talk about it maybe next week or whatever. I was like, also, I'm traveling. I'm not trying to add new things while I'm traveling. Like, it's just not going to work. And she was like, okay, cool. But think about that because I really do think we should put you on OCD medication. That was Tuesday. Thursday, I see Bia at Summit. And I was like, "Bia, like, I'm so excited for your thing on Saturday. This is gonna be great." And out of nowhere, again, universe works its magic. I had never thought about getting certified in breathwork ever. I've never even done her breathwork yet at this point. I turned to her and I go, "I think I want to get certified with you." And then I was like, wait, actually, I have no idea what I just said. I don't know anything about your certification or your breathwork. What? 2 days later, I experienced the breathwork and my life does a 180. I cried, I was shaking, all of these things. I get up, and at this point, I was at Summit. I was wearing a mask. I was using all the hand sanitizers, not touching anything. Like I was still, because I was around 1,000 people. The rest of Summit, I walked around without a mask, head held higher, walking around feeling like I was on top of the world. And I was like, is this what normal people get to feel like all the time when they're not afraid? I was like, this is wild. Like what is happening? And so after the session, I went up to Bia and I was like, certify me. I was like, this shit is wild. Certify me, like right now. And so I joined the certification starting in November of that year, got certified January of this year. And truly, I say all of this to say, like, try something that you might have written off other versions of, because this is something that has changed my life and changed so many people's lives. So with that, theta breathwork is a modality that helps us really get into our subconscious mind. So we've got our conscious mind, which is like all the chatter, our subconscious mind, and then our unconscious mind. But our unconscious mind is what does the things that we don't think about, like growing our hair and our nails and our skin, and like all the things that no matter what, we cannot control. So just think about conscious and subconscious right now. So the conscious mind is the chatter, but that's only about 5% of how we operate in a day. Most of the rest of that 95%, like some of it's unconscious, but like most of the rest of that 95% is our subconscious mind. And so this means that 95% of the time, like it's technically between 88% and 95%, but 95% of the time, your subconscious mind is driving the vehicle that is your body. So if you have suppressed emotions in there, if you have limiting beliefs in there, if you have your values in there, if you've got trauma, experiences, memory, like you've got everything in there, right? So if one of those is triggered by something external, even though you have all this chatter in your brain, that's only 5%. The 95% is coming out roaring. And so the thing is, the conscious mind, the chatter tells us, oh, well, you're triggered and you feel like you need to cry, but other people are going to make fun of you. So let's just not cry. Let's like shove that down. Or like, oh, you're feeling really angry. Well, you're not allowed to be angry because that's what children do and you're not a child anymore. So like, let's just suppress that. Like, let's put that down. And so we've got all of this suppressed energy and emotion pent up inside of us, inside of our bodies, and it's basically stored in our subconscious mind. And so with theta breathwork, we move the chatter, that conscious mind, out of the way so that we can open up the subconscious mind and just really go in and explore like, hey, what has been holding me back? Is it a belief? Is there an emotion? Is there just some energy in my body that needs to get out of here? Because honestly, emotions are just energy in motion, emotion. And so when you're feeling really tense, when you're feeling really anxious, that is an emotion. It's just energy that needs to get out. And so if you do theta breath work with me, you'll hear that I'll say like, feel free to shake out and things like that. If you think about like an animal being chased by another animal, but if that first animal gets away, it kind of like shakes off really fast to reset its nervous system back into rest and repair. But most of the time, us as humans are in fight or flight and stay in fight or flight because it would be really weird if we just walked around shaking off all the time, right? And so it's like, that's a really good example of our subconscious is like, I'm feeling this stuff, like I need to get it out. Let's regulate our nervous system. And your chatter brain is like, that's weird. Don't do that. And so we've got all this pent up emotion and energy just stuck. And so with the theta breath work, we start with the meditation. I bring you down. Then we start this breathing pattern that puts your nervous system into a rest and repair state, which then we like move your conscious mind out of the way a little bit and your subconscious mind, your body feels safe now. So then your subconscious mind is like, okay, I can start to show you all of the things that you have stored in here. And we start to go through that. And depending on like what the theta breathwork session is dedicated to. So like whether it's just a general session or if it's confidence, if it's inner child healing, like I've done a huge list of different types, right? That will, evoke certain things in you. Your subconscious mind loves questions. So I ask a lot of questions during this and you're just breathing, listening to the music, listening to me and just allowing whatever needs to come up to come up. And the best thing about this is that because you're moving energy, whether you get clarity immediately or in days after it, you will get clarity because you are finally allowing yourself to tap into the most innate part of yourself, your intuition, your imagination, that subconscious stuff, to be able to say, okay, this is what's holding me back. And here I'm going to actually release it now through this breath work. And now I can find clarity and find ways that feel really empowered for me when I don't have that fog, right? When I don't have that limiting belief, that emotion, that whatever, clouding my judgment. And so as you can see, that is such a powerful way to go about releasing your limiting beliefs, and using that with my high performers is something that they're just like, I I can't quiet my brain most of the time because I have so many things to think about. I've got so many different things going on. I also, what I've found is a lot of people with ADHD actually really like theta breath work because it's like the first time that their mind can actually quiet to be able to sift through all of the information and allow them to see truly what their intuition, their imagination, their subconscious mind wants them to see. So like you were saying, you overtalk too much because you get passionate about something. That is exactly what I just did. I just dumped for like 15 minutes. Thank you for listening. But that is truly what theta breathwork is. It's the ability to use your breath to remove and release suppressed emotions and blocks so that you can gain more clarity and confidence and aligned action steps moving forward.
Yeah, and it all circles back to limiting beliefs. So I think it's a great way to wrap up this episode. Do you have any final words of wisdom that you want to bestow on the listeners when it comes to chasing their dreams or transforming into this high performer, releasing their limiting beliefs, just anything that you want to close out this episode with?
Yeah, I think that truly what you need to do is have your own back. Building self trust and self belief is going to be so important. Like the biggest beliefs that you need to have are in yourself and in the vision. The more that you start caring about what other people think and all of this stuff, like even if what they're saying is out of love from them, not wanting to see you get hurt by going after this thing, like you need to be able to be bulletproof against all of that, whether it is good or bad, so that you're able to continue and be resilient in your quest, towards what you're going after. But with that, I would say that you also really need to be ready to take radical responsibility and be vulnerable with yourself in this process, because you are going to shine a lot of lights on dark places that you either didn't know existed within you or you were trying to hide because you felt embarrassed or shameful or what have you. And the more that you work through those and the more that you bring light to those, the better of a friend you are to yourself and the more resilience, confidence, and trust you are able to build within yourself, which is ultimately what will take you to higher and higher levels. So when people say that they do this work, I know that they are not a weak human being. Like this is not a walk in the park by any means, but it is something that is so rewarding. And it takes dedication. It takes a lot of love and the willingness to cultivate that within you. But trust me, it's a journey that will take you so much further than you ever thought possible. And if that's something that you're like, I know that I have this inside of me, like this is the journey that is waiting for you, that is calling for you to really take an opportunity to step up instead of stay stuck where you are.
Amazing. Thank you, Corinne, so much for this valuable conversation. I want to thank you for being a guest on How to 20 Something. And where can people find you if they want to get in touch, if they want to follow you, if they want to inquire about working with you? Like how can they find you?
Yeah, so Instagram is the best way. That's where I hang out most of the time. I'm actually trying to get more on LinkedIn now, so if you want to be friends on LinkedIn, let me know. But Instagram is the best at Corinne.Eckert. And then from there, you can just feel free to DM me and we can chat about different ways that we can work together. I also am a speaker. So if you have an event that you are looking for a speaker at or a theta breathwork session at, I would be happy to discuss that as well. So just let me know. I would actually really love to hear your biggest takeaway from this, and what maybe light that I was able to shine or we were able to shine on a part of you that was like, oh, that stung a little bit. Let's talk about it. Like that's the work, and being able to step into that for yourself and empower yourself to take that next step and feel comfortable with that is really, really something. And I would love to hear that from you and share that with you and talk through it. So Instagram would probably be the best place for that.
Yes, and you can just click right in the show notes for the link to her Instagram because it will be linked there, per usual. And you'll also get to see about her upcoming program, The Identity Shift. Otherwise, this does conclude another episode of How to 20 Something. If you liked what you heard, please share this episode, send it to a friend, post on social media, DM Corinne and tell her that you liked it, rate the show 5 stars, just do something that's going to help me spread my reach to all of the 20-somethings out there. And as always, I can't wait to be in your headphones again next week with another brand new episode.